Regeneration of Political Power. This is a book that focused at the last 3 years before the ANC came to power and 17 years till 2011. Her analysis focuses on how the ANC in 20 years of political power has acted to continuously shape, maintain and regenerate power in relation to its internal structures, processes, opposition parties, people, government and the state. The book offers insight into how South African politics are synonymous with the politics of the ANC. Professor Prof Booysen is here to talk to us about this. Good morning to you.
Good morning for you.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. First, why did you see it necessary to incorporate the 3 years before 1994 in your analysis?
Now, the ANC is really in a process of gradually assuming power, even those years before the pivotal 1994 elections. And those years really are crucial because they shaped certain compromises that the ANC brought into the dispensation. And now, almost 20 years later, 18 years, this conference still struggling with some of those compromises. And even in terms of this conference, we've seen going back to original compromises. Even at the beginning of Zuma's term in Polokwane, I'd actually envisaged moving away, becoming more connected, more radical, a big turn to the left that had actually not happened in the 1990 to 1994 negotiations, constitutional negotiations. And so those were such crucial years in terms of how the ANC exercised and shapes power nowadays.
Now, before 1994, you make reference to the 1991 elections and compromises that were made to accommodate some certain positions. Has this always been the case within the ANC?
The ANC is really an organization of compromises, not just because it's such a wide, broad church, a bit of a euphemism for many other fights and forms of contestation, but it continuously struggles between being that liberation movement and wanting to live out those ideals. And in a real world and real policies, international global environment, really have to often make compromises and come to terms. This is the politics of the possible. And also in terms of the budgets that are available to it, these are the limits of policies that we can pursue.
Now, separation of the ANC from the state, it seems to be a difficult thing. Is that the feeling as well in the book?
It is indeed. That comes out in a book, that continuous struggle that the ANC has. On the one hand, they want to live out with this idea of separation of powers, also constitutionally prescribed, and one of those is terrific oversight mechanisms, but it just doesn't work like that in practice. And we see that concretizing in the conference deliberations to the court issues, and we look at the delegates to this conference, some having taken the ANC to court about very robust, to put euphemistically again, procedures and campaigns that were being conducted. And the ANC is struggling with how to deal with that, how to show that it respects the Constitution and due legal process, but has to deal with its own cadres. And one of the debates here at the conference, especially among delegates, has been what to do with these ANC members that have taken the ANC to court. Some people here said, what is this thing about us reconciling with our comrades in our branches back home? They are not members of the ANC anymore. And when it's pointed out to them, but the constitution of the ANC is not yet changed to automatically expel them should they be taking the ANC to court, the popular response, and this is especially from the Zuma's camp delegates here, is what constitution? What do we care about that? Then talking about the ANC constitution, but really that kind of tolerance and separation often not coming out very strongly in deliberations and in practical ground level politics in ANC.
Now, in the book, you say Mbeki thought that his loyalists and his performance record in government, rather than endorsement by the ANC, would carry him into a third term. What is ideal? Performance in government or ANC endorsement despite the leader's performance? Or is it possible to incorporate the two?
It's almost impossible to separate the two. But in this conference, we have seen an attempt to separate that. Also in the broader South African politics, beyond just the delegates at this conference, the conference itself, where people have tried to focus discussions as to who should lead the ANC much more on a rational assessment. How has the incumbent government performed? How have the NEC members performed? But especially in the dominant Zuma's camp, it really dominated this conference. We saw it was almost an irrational push. continuity, unity, and unity then used as a little umbrella term for no internal opposition, please. We have to give this man a second term. It was lack of rational assessment of that. And for example, we saw recently an opinion poll that was released this week, President Zuma's national popularity, way beyond this conference, going around 52%, quite stable on that level, whereas Motlante's was in a 70%. And one generally conducts election campaigns, very important for the ANC, and they think a lot about next elections in this conference, but one conducts them with a leader whose popularity is generally higher than that of the party, so that leaders can pull up the party. The ANC has been sailing consistently below that level.
Thank you very much. Professor Prof Booysen is with Wits University joining us this morning talking about her book.